metallic taste filled my mouth as my mother's words hung in the air between us. "You can take the guest room or move out." The kitchen light cast harsh shadows across her face, making her expression even colder than her tone. Behind her, my sister Fiona leaned against the doorframe, barely hiding her smirk. "You're serious?" My voice sounded strange in my ears, like it belonged to someone else. Mom's eyes flicked to Fiona, then back to me. "I'm not discussing this. Fiona and Brian need your room. They're moving in." The dinner I'd spent an hour cooking sat untouched on the table. Just 30 minutes earlier, I'd been setting out plates, wondering why Mom had insisted on using the good china on a random Thursday. Now I knew why. My name is Megan, I'm 28, and this is the story of how I became invisible to my own family, until I wasn't. For 5 years, I'd lived with my mother in the house my father rebuilt before his sudden death from heart failure. The place wasn't even fully decorated when he passed away. One week we were choosing kitchen tiles together. The next, I was sitting beside Mom as she stared blankly at the wall, barely able to get out of bed. We held the funeral on a rainy Friday. Fiona, my younger sister, flew in wearing designer sunglasses and a silk scarf, cried dramatically at the service, and left by Sunday morning. I stayed. I stayed because someone had to, because Mom was fragile, because the mortgage wasn't fully paid off and someone had to make the payments, because, I hate to admit it, I felt responsible. I owed Dad that much. He loved Mom, even when she belittled him, even when she snapped at him for the smallest things. He never raised his voice. "She just needs more grace," he'd say. "You girls take care of her." So I did. I gave up a promotion that would have transferred me to Seattle. I turned down company housing even though it came with reduced rent and a 15-minute commute instead of my current 45. I stayed. And for what? To be reminded daily that I wasn't Fiona. Fiona, the golden child. Fiona with her glossy hair, 1,000-watt smile, and Instagram-perfect life. Fiona who left home at 22 to marry Brian, whose only real talent was looking good in a blazer. She was the star of every family gathering. Meanwhile, I was the background noise. "You should wear more color, Megan," Mom would say. "Fiona always lights up a room. You look like you're dressing for jury duty." Or, "Why don't you try dating again? It's not too late, even for someone like you. Even for someone like me." I gritted my teeth and paid the bills, cleaned the gutters, cooked the dinners. I thought if I just kept showing up, maybe she'd see me. Maybe eventually I'd be enough. But everything changed that Thursday evening. I came home 2 hours late thanks to a shipping delay at work and walked into a scene that felt like déjà vu. Fiona was curled up on the living room couch, tissues balled in her lap. Brian sat beside her, flipping through his phone like he wished he were anywhere else. Mom hovered with a tray of tea and shortbread cookies, like they were royalty visiting from abroad. "Megan," Mom chirped like I was a neighbor stopping by. "Guess who's back?" "I can see that," I said. "What's going on?" Fiona sniffled. "Brian lost his job. The company downsized and cut his entire department." Brian didn't look up. "We're behind on rent," Fiona continued. "Our landlord gave us 2 weeks to vacate, and we don't have anywhere to go." "So they're moving in," Mom added quickly, already wrapping an arm around Fiona. "Wait, what?" I set my bag down. "I live here." "You'll figure it out, Megan," Mom said with a dismissive wave. "You're good at that." I looked at Fiona, who gave a tiny shrug and mouthed, "Sorry," though the smirk at the corner of her lips told a different story. Later that evening, I pulled Mom aside. "This house is barely big enough for 2 adults, let alone 4, I said. "Where are they going to sleep?" "In your room," she said plainly. I felt my throat constrict. "What?" "You can take the guest room or move out. It's up to you." "You're serious." "I'm not discussing this. I always wanted Fiona back here. She belongs in this house." "I've been paying the mortgage," I said, my voice tightening. Mom shrugged. "It's in my name." "And you've always acted like you were doing me some big favor." "I never asked you to." "Because you couldn't," I interrupted. "You were a mess after Dad died." Her eyes hardened. "And now I have Fiona. I don't need you." It hit like a slap. My skin went hot, then cold, and for a moment I thought I might be sick right there in the kitchen. The next morning, Fiona knocked on my door with a cheery voice and no trace of regret. "Hey, Mom says if you could be out by Saturday, that'd be great. Brian and I kind of need this space." "Excuse me?" She leaned against the frame, eyes bright. "Come on, you've been living like a spinster. This will be good for you. A little fresh start." I shut the door in her face. Inside, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor. On the bookshelf sat a manila folder I hadn't touched in months. It was from HR. Inside was the offer for company housing that I'd declined when I thought Mom needed me. My hand trembled slightly as I opened it. Studio apartment, clean, safe, close to work, move-in bonus. No screaming, no guilt, no Fiona. I made the call. By Friday afternoon, I'd filed for transfer, secured a key, and scheduled movers. I packed in silence. No one offered to help. No one asked why. They were too busy planning a welcome-back barbecue. Fiona wanted to repaint the kitchen. Brian asked if they could swap the couch for a sectional. Saturday morning came. A hot breeze rustled the blinds. I stood in the driveway in jeans and a t-shirt, my hair pulled into a ponytail, a clipboard in hand as the truck rolled in. The movers stepped out, surprised by the number of boxes already stacked near the porch. "You ready for the big move?" one asked with a grin. "Yeah," I said, exhaling. "Let's get started." We loaded everything. My bed, my bookshelves, my coffee maker, my desk, my dishes. I took my time. With every box, I felt lighter, stronger, free. By early afternoon, we were almost done. One of the movers paused by the door, glanced around at the now empty room, and raised an eyebrow. "You're really taking everything?" I smiled, calm, unapologetic. "Yes," I said, "everything." By the time the truck pulled away, the house I'd once called home looked hollow. No TV, no coffee table, no dining chairs, no framed prints, just dust outlines on the floor where my furniture used to be. Everything I'd bought over the years was mine, purchased with my paycheck, delivered on my days off, assembled by my hands. So yes, I took it all. When I turned in the keys to the staff housing office later that afternoon, I almost couldn't believe it. The studio apartment was small but bright, quiet, clean. The fridge didn't hum ominously. The water pressure was perfect. I didn't have to fight over the bathroom schedule. I sat on the mattress and exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. That night, I ignored the buzzing of my phone. Missed calls, voicemails, messages from Mom, then Fiona, then Brian. Most of them angry, a few confused. I didn't listen. I turned my phone off, made tea, and watched the city lights from my tiny balcony. By Monday, they'd shown up at my job. The front desk called down. Megan, your mom's here, and your sister." I almost laughed. I hadn't even given them the address. They must have looked up where I worked from mail they'd seen at the house. I stayed in the loading bay until they left. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of a confrontation on my turf. That evening, on my way home, I decided to swing by the house. I figured they'd be waiting, and I was right. I saw Mom's car and Fiona's old Lexus in the driveway as I pulled up. The porch light was on, but the living room was dark. I knocked once before letting myself in with the spare key I hadn't returned. Mom and Fiona were in the kitchen, arms crossed, expressions thunderous. Mom didn't waste time. "What the hell did you do?" "What are you talking about?" I asked calmly. "You cleaned the place out. There's nothing left. No fridge, no table, not even the toaster." "That was mine," I said. "I bought it like I bought everything else." Fiona stepped forward, brows furrowed. "You can't just take things without permission." "I didn't," I replied. "You assumed they were yours. That doesn't make it true." "We didn't think you'd take literally everything," Mom snapped. I opened my hands. "What exactly did you expect?" "The house feels like a shell," Fiona said quietly. "It's depressing." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I'm sorry. Is the house I paid for not comfortable enough without my things?" Fiona's eyes narrowed. "What about the bank account?" I blinked. "What?" "The joint account. Dad's insurance money was deposited there, remember? I checked yesterday, there's nothing left." I let out a soft breath, already seeing where this was going. That money was gone a long time ago, I said. I've been covering the mortgage on my own for the past 4 years. Fiona froze. No, there was a ton left. I saw it once, like 40,000. That wasn't insurance money, I explained. That was me saving portions of my paycheck. That's what I used to supplement the mortgage and utilities. No way, Fiona muttered. I tilted my head. Why does it matter? You're not on the deed. It's not your house. Mom's expression flickered. First surprise, then panic. Fiona turned sharply to her. Is she lying? Mom said nothing. Mother, Fiona said more firmly, tell me she's lying. Fiona, let's talk later. Tell me. Mom looked away. Fiona's hands clenched into fists. You told me the insurance payout was still sitting there, that if we came back, we'd be okay, that we could use it to get back on our feet. I looked between them, stunned. You came back for money? Fiona rounded on me, all pretense gone. You think we moved in for family bonding? Brian and I are drowning in debt. He got fired 2 months ago. We've been maxing out credit cards. You think I actually wanted to sleep in my childhood bed again? Mom tried to interject. She didn't mean it like... Yes, I did, Fiona shouted. I meant every word. I wouldn't be here if you hadn't promised there was money. Mom's face turned pale. And you, Fiona growled, pointing at me, took every last thing in that house and left us with a pile of empty promises. I crossed my arms. No, I left you with exactly what you gave me. Nothing. Fiona's lips trembled. The insurance money was supposed to be shared. You mean the money you thought you'd inherit? I said coolly. The money you never paid into, never contributed to? We wouldn't be in this mess if you hadn't emptied the house. We wouldn't be in this mess if you hadn't banked your entire future on a lie. Fiona turned back to Mom, eyes wide with rage. You said it was still there. Mom's voice was barely audible. I thought we'd figure it out later. Later? That's all you ever say. Later, soon, eventually. You told me to come home. You said we'd be fine. Because I missed you, Mom whispered. No, you missed having someone to dote on, someone who made you feel important. You never cared about what I needed. I watched as they unraveled, unraveling each other, Fiona pacing, Mom stammering, both realizing the same thing at the same time. There was no plan, only delusion. Brian hadn't come home since the fight the day before. Fiona had maxed out her 3rd credit card. Mom had no savings. The house still had 6 years left on the mortgage, and the only person who'd been paying it, me, was gone. Suddenly, Fiona's voice dropped to a whisper, a terrifying, desperate whisper. You said we could use that money to start over. There is no money, I said flatly, and there hasn't been for years. Fiona's face crumpled. She looked like a child realizing Santa wasn't real. What about the file folder? Dad's paperwork? Gone. Mom used most of it to redo the bathroom, then the kitchen. Then she bought you that used Lexus when you got married. That was from her savings, Fiona insisted. I shook my head. No, that was from his insurance. I kept the receipts. Fiona turned to Mom. Tell me that's not true. Silence. Tell me. Mom stared at the floor. I didn't want to worry you. Fiona let out a strangled noise and stormed toward the hall. I stood there watching the wreckage unfold. Mom turned to me with glossy eyes. Please, Megan, help us. Why would I? Because you're the only one who knows how to fix things. You called me a parasite. You told me to get out, remember? I was angry. I didn't mean it. Yes, you did, I said. And now you're exactly where you put yourself. Fiona came back into the room holding a torn envelope in one hand. It's empty, she said, her voice low and bitter. There's nothing, not even old bills. I know, I replied. I checked. Years ago. Mom sat down at the kitchen table and buried her face in her hands. I looked at the two of them. They'd kicked me out expecting comfort, backup, and cash. What they got was an empty house, a mountain of debt, and no one to blame but themselves. And they still didn't see it. They still thought I'd fix it. They still thought I owed them. They were wrong. Fiona stood still in the hallway, holding that empty folder like it had betrayed her. Mom sat at the kitchen table, face pale, fingers laced, breathing shallow. I could tell she was trying to piece it all together, how she'd lost control of the narrative, of the house, of both her daughters, and most of all, of me. "I don't understand," Mom finally whispered. "What are we supposed to do now?" I didn't answer. "I mean the mortgage," she continued, voice rising in desperation. "The bills, the food. We don't even have a blender anymore, or a microwave." "That was mine," I said. "All of it was mine." "You could have left something." "You left me with nothing, just memories of being reminded I was second best, just years of pretending I didn't hear you call me dull or plain or a burden." Fiona spun toward her. "And you told me there'd be money. You said Dad left enough for a second start, that we could pay off the cards, that Brian and I could... You lied to us." "To both of us," I added, "but the difference is I stopped believing you years ago." Mom's mouth opened and closed, but nothing came out. I took a deep breath and reached into my tote. I pulled out a white envelope and laid it on the counter. "What's this?" Fiona asked wearily. "My last mortgage receipt. The loan is still in your name, Mother. You'll need to cover it now. 6 more years. Fixed rate. Monthly payments aren't bad. Unless you're unemployed and broke, I guess." "You can't expect us to pay this," Fiona snapped. "I don't expect anything. I'm done expecting. I just wanted to leave you the facts, since fantasy hasn't worked out so well." Fiona gritted her teeth. "You're heartless." I turned to her. "You came back for money, Fiona. Not for Mom, not for love, not even out of desperation. You were banking on a lie and using people to cover your losses. Don't pretend this is about family." "Oh, and you're a saint," she shot back. "You just abandoned your mother after everything she's been through." "No," I said. "I stayed for years. I supported her. I paid for her home, groceries, gas, medical bills, insurance, and her little renovations. I gave her my 20s and she threw me out the second you came back. So no, I didn't abandon her. She traded me." Mom flinched. Fiona looked shaken but quickly masked it with anger. "I can't believe you're just walking away." I gave a dry laugh. "You should be grateful. I could have emptied the savings account before I left, but I didn't, because unlike both of you, I still had an ounce of decency left." "You're cruel," Mom whispered. "No, I'm free." I turned and headed for the door. Behind me, Fiona snapped. "Well, good. We don't need you. I'll figure something out. Brian's talking to a guy about a job." "I'm sure he is," I said, without looking back. "Gambling's a tough industry to break into." Fiona cursed under her breath. I stopped at the threshold, hand on the doorknob. "Take care of each other," I said. "You wanted her, Mother. Now live with her." And I walked out. The door clicked behind me with a weight that felt symbolic, like years of pain and pressure sealing themselves off for good. It's been 4 weeks since that day. I haven't heard from them directly, but I did hear from my old colleague, Sarah, who lives on the same street as my mother. She texted me that the house went on the market. Apparently it sat for 2 weeks before someone lowballed them, and they had to accept. I still have Sarah blocked on social media. Too many memories. But we exchange occasional texts. Through her, I learned they'd moved into a small 1-bedroom apartment across town. Fiona works part-time at a bakery. Mom apparently is doing admin at a dentist's office. Brian eventually left town altogether. Sarah mentioned seeing him packing his car one night, never to return. I've made it clear to Sarah and my other remaining contacts that I have no desire to reconnect with my family. After what they did, that bridge is permanently burned. This chapter of my life is closed for good. I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel satisfying, but more than that, it feels quiet. My new apartment is still modest, but it's mine. The furniture is mismatched but cozy. I cook what I want, watch whatever I feel like, sleep through the night without hearing slammed cabinet doors or whispered insults behind walls. My manager offered me a lead position last week. I said yes. This morning, I stopped by a cafe I used to avoid because Mom called it pretentious. I brought a book. I drank my cappuccino in peace. I caught myself smiling for no reason at all. And I realized something. They kicked me out thinking I was disposable, a placeholder, a parasite. But in the end, I was the only thing holding everything together. Now they have each other, and I have everything else. Freedom, solitude, stability, and finally the life I chose.